Okay, so we're in Blender and starting a new project. I sped this up a little bit to save you some time. So we're going to just start with a box and just changing the geometry. I'm assuming you know basic Blender keys. I like to keep, when I'm doing non-organic objects that are more robotic or more like a door or something that's a machine, I like to constrict my axes to the X, Y, and Z when I'm extruding and beveling. So just a personal note that's a good practice. I found if you start to try and extrude things when you're in perspective mode, sometimes you'll go askew with your geometry. Like I'm doing a very low polygon design for this game, so I'm choosing very simple shapes to work with. This is the crest for the door that I'm designing. Very simple. And just using the same keys over and over. Scale, G for grab, S for scale, Shift D for duplicate. The design I didn't pre-plan. Sometimes I like to create game assets. I think about it for a little bit. I'll do some hand drawings but when I actually get in there, I just kind of want it to be an organic process. I like to be creative as I work. So sometimes I'll do things I don't like it. I'll use Blender literally as part of my rough draft and final product. It's a great tool for brainstorming on the fly. I separated this triangle because they're going to come apart, this part, so I wanted to make it two separate objects. So I just did in edit mode, Control R to use the loop cut tool, and then deleted the geometry so that they're separate parts, so that they'll come apart easily when I apply bones. And then I'm just brainstorming here and playing with shapes, which is fun. It's what I like to do. The door has a front and back side, so put it on the back side. I wanted to not be too much the exact same on the back side, a little bit of variety, and so I flipped it. Now I'm adding the bones. When you add, like I said, these objects are kind of the borderlands between a full-on character skeletal mesh and a static object, so be careful when you're using bones and they're very disjointed. So I'm Shift D'ing these bones, right? Placing them in the location. But right now they're separate bones. So later you're going to want to select them all and join them. So in your mesh tools, there's a join option, or I believe you can hit Control J after selecting them all, and you'll want them all to be one. If you have them separate bones, like individual, then when you go into pose mode, they'll kind of be their own little island, and I've found Unreal will not work with that. It likes something that's similar to a skeletal mesh, where it has somewhat of a root. So this part, what I'm doing here is I'm just parenting each element that I want movable to these individual bones. So let me pause this and we'll go into Blender. I'll show you a little bit. I'll jump forward a little bit. So in Blender, the bone system, they all had to be parented so that they work correctly in Unreal. So don't go Shift A, create a armature, a single bone, then Shift A and create a single bone for each one of these. You can just in the end make sure that they're all you connect them all. And then when you go into pose mode, basically what I did, so I want each bone to move the elements that are independent. So these small triangles are all independent, yet this bone, when the door swings open, it moves this, and this. So basically do that. Select them, select your elements that you isolated out, and then remember, after you've parented, after you've joined all these bones, so that you can do this, so that they're all posable together. If they're not, you won't be able to. You'll select one, and then you'll go to select another one, and it will not be, they will not simultaneously be able to be in pose mode. So remember, just select all your bones and join them in your mesh tool. I believe you can do that, or you can just hit Control J and join them all. It will make them like kind of like a skeletal hierarchy. So you see over in the corner here now, you've got bone 5, bone 6, bone 1. So to parent them, isolate your elements that you want to move individually or together, then select just the individual bone in pose mode, and then hit Control P, and I just in a character mesh you'll probably want to do with automatic weights, and then you really want to go in there and do a lot of weight painting. This is a little different. It's adequate just to parent it to the bone itself. So just go Control P, bone, because you want this bone to have complete influence over these objects. If you do it a different way, you'll probably get weird weights. It will give a fall off on the other ones. You want it cleanly pulling on just the elements that you want, because these are individual components, unlike a human body where when it deforms, its neighboring parts need to stretch with it. So you have to have kind of a shading or a fall off. So as I said, just select the element you want and then Control P and to the bone for each one. And then we'll go back to the work that I have that's going faster for your benefit, so I don't waste all your time. And here I'm just making sure that all my elements are correctly parented to the bones. It's a lot of just selecting Control P, and then I like to move it, make sure that it's working how you want. I give them basically a little test. Remember to save your work periodically. That's what I'm doing here. I suggest to do that before you get too deep into a project. As I said before, even though I'm not really going to use a UV map, I might later, you know, I might talk to other people, the programmers or other game designers, and they might say, well, we want to add some different textures. We don't necessarily want it vertex painted. So make sure you unwrap, take the time to unwrap all your objects, all your components, so that it has more options. That's my advice. And if you want your channels to be correct, another note, make sure that each component that you want to have a certain material, so that in Unreal you can have those channels that I showed you, you assign them all their own material. So let's pause. And we'll go back into the project. So if I want just basically two tones, the door in itself, so basically select the object and assign it a material over here. So how you do that is, so okay, let's do it right now. Let's say I want these smaller triangles to have a different material in Unreal. So, and I want to be able to change it around a lot, and maybe I want them to glow, right? If it was just a texture map, no problem. I can just do a texture on there. But what if I want some other effects, like some glow on it, or I want to play with the actual physical part of the material, not just the texture? I found this gives me more leeway. So right now, this doesn't even have a channel on it. So when I pull this, if I pull this door into Unreal, it will not be as isolated. So select it, hit new, and we're going to make a new material for it. So let's, you name it how you want. Remember, I'm in Cycles Render, and we're going to be using, it will use this node system. So I'm just going to call it T1. And I just give it kind of a generic color, because this color is not going to be the final color in Unreal. It will be just a color for me to make sure that it's assigned. And go back into your material. To test it, you go here and you could check it out in your material. See, it's not applied yet. Sometimes you have to hit Tab A and assign it. Now you can see that it's on there. So what this is going to do is it's going to open up a new channel in Unreal for me to play around with. And so I found it's useful. And I would probably like to give all of these this material. Sometimes I found, which is kind of odd, is if I just select it, and give it the material, it will assign it, which is great. But sometimes I need to actually hit Tab, hit A, and physically assign it by using the assign button for it to really sort of galvanize it so that it has no question that that is the material that it's going to be using and taking with it into Unreal when I export this as an FBX. Yet a lot of times it will work just by selecting it and changing it as in object mode, so a lot of times this will work. Other times, if you find later you take it over into Unreal and for some reason it didn't seem to, like you'll go to assign the material and one of these, for instance, triangles will not have it, then you might have to go in, like I said, and play with it a little bit, finesse it. So Tab, A, and really just like assign, you know. So then you can help, I suppose, help the computer understand that that's what you want. So I want three materials. Now this has no material yet, so let's give it one, select it. I have it selected. It can be somewhat tedious. So that's what you'll do. You'll go through and select those materials. Individually, you'll create a new material. New, let's go T2. We give it a generic color, usually something nice and bright, even something somewhat ostentatious looking. So it really just pops out. This is so that you can know as a designer that your materials are isolated. And then I like to pop from X-ray view into material view to check. See, it's not assigned. So I hit Tab, A, assign it. There we go. Select this. Let's see if it'll just give it to us. There we go. That's a faster way, much easier way. And you can do it in object mode, yet sometimes it won't transfer and you'll have to, as I said, go in there, take it into edit mode, select all, and then actually assign it for it to really understand that those vertexes have a different material channel. So there, let's get out of here and go back, finish up what I was doing here. Now we are going into the animation process soon. I'm just still unwrapping my UVs, so you just, for the door, I went ahead and I did a little bit more of I actually assigned edges to it and did a more complex UV unwrap. It's not really complex, by no means complex. And for some, you can just select it in edit mode, hit A, and do a smart UV unwrap. Yet if your geometry has some depth to it, you'll want to go in there and assign your UVs or tell the computer how your UVs should unwrap instead of using smart UV project. I should probably illustrate that. I shouldn't assume that someone knows how to do an UV unwrap. So if you already know this, forgive me if it's tedious, but we'll go back in and I'll show it really quick. So in here, like I said, this door has some depth, and it probably would work if I just hit Tab and did a U and smart. So in edit mode, which is Tab, so it's an object mode, hit Tab, edit mode, A, select all, U. Smart UV project would probably work fine. I went ahead and, as you can see by these red lines, since it's just basically a square, I just hit A and then Control E. That will give you your edge tools. Very useful set of tools. You can do all sorts of useful things with this. Like for instance, the bevels, which are awesome if you do them right for hard surface modeling. You can assign freestyle edges for more stylized, but what you want to do is mark seams. So this will tell the computer how you want your UV to unwrap. So you know, if I just wanted to select here, here, hold down Shift, you can custom select parts, which you should do for complex model, and then Control E will give you edge tools, and then you'll go to mark seam and you'll mark these seams. You can, if you make a mistake, you can do Control E and clear the seam too and get rid of it. And that's how, and then you hit U, unwrap your UVs, make sure you have a UV image to test it out, and yeah, basic. I can go over more detail on how to UV unwrap later. This is more of an overview of the project workflow. Okay, so designing on the fly, which I think, you know, you don't want to be too controlled with your designs. You definitely want to have kind of a rough map, but you know, you don't want to like know everything that's going to happen along the way, or you'll probably become extremely bored. At least I do. I like to know roughly where I'm going, yet I like to get feedback from the objects themselves, real time. I like to, you know, if you like playing with Legos when you're a kid, it's probably why you love Blender and you love working with stuff like this, and might be why you learn to love programming, because it is somewhat like when we were kids and we played with Legos. It was just awesome to see the shapes work together, and you didn't like plan your whole Lego creation out on a diagram before you even began, right? You just wanted to get in there with your hands and do it. And I suggest, you know, maybe kind of designing what you're going to do, yet when you go about it, kind of freehand it. It's more rewarding, I think. You won't be so bored, you know, just going through pre-designed steps. Sometimes you have to have a lot of forethought, and forethought, like I say, a little forethought goes a long way. So have it, but also don't stop up your creative juices and have fun while you go. Improvise. Try weird things. Like that was a total fail. My triangles went berserk. Yet I wanted to try it, and I had to go back, but I wanted to see. I was curious. And it was fun for me to do this because I had no pre-planned particular shape I was going to use. I wanted to play with the shapes. I wanted to see how they animated right there. Sometimes it's risky when you're doing that, especially if you've got a deadline. You might have to throw things out, and that's the process. Every time you have a new prototype, you do enrich your project, and that's just kind of how it goes. It is a process. And so this is the basic locking mechanism that I thought, well, let's do that. Kind of like that. And it's almost finished now. I'm setting up my keyframes. I can go over later about keyframing. Yep, that's it. So now we can get into Unreal in just 1 second.